Na Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Good morning. How was your morning chanting? Was all right? Mangalarti was fired up, huh? Yeah, we have Bhakti Jimmy who came back. His Bhakti Shakti is like pouring out of his heart, which is very nice. We need more fired up devotees to spread the glories of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam around the world. So today I prepared for text 9. So we will just read quickly 7 and 8 and then go to the 9th, which has a very nice purport. One of the kind of the main things Prabhupada was emphasizing on, like the Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, drive away the Mayavad and the Shunyavadis, the nihilist, all these kind of things. Text 7. Etasmin me mano vidvam kidyate jnana sankate tanna paranuda vivo kashmalam manasam mahad. Translation. O great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of these nations, and I therefore request you to clear it up. Purport. Such mental bewilderment as presented here by Vidura takes place for some living entities, but not for everyone. For if everyone were bewildered, there would be no possibility of a solution by higher personalities. Text 8. Shishuka uvacha Saitam kadita kshatra tatva jigyasuna munihi pratyaha bhagavachitta smayam iva gata smaya. Translation. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, O King Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God-conscious. Purport. Since the great sage Maitreya was filled with God-consciousness, he had no reason to be astonished at such contradictory questions by Vidura. Therefore, although as a devotee he externally expressed surprise as if he did not know how to reply to those questions, he immediately became perfectly settled and properly replied to Vidura. Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. Anyone who is a devotee of the Lord knows about the Lord to some extent, and devotional service to the Lord makes him able to know everything by the grace of the Lord. Although a devotee may apparently express himself to be ignorant, he is full of knowledge in every intricate matter. Text 9. So this one we can chant together. You have it there? Oh, we have it here also, yes. Maitreya uvacha Seyam Bhagavato Maya Yannayena Virudyate Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karpanyam Uta Bandhanam. Maitreya uvacha Seyam Bhagavato Maya Yannayena Virudyate Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karpanyamuta Bandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha Seyam Bhagavato Maya Yana Yena Virudyate Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karpanyamuta Bandhanam. Gentlemen, Maitreya Uvacha Seyam Bhagavato Maya Yanayena Virudyate Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karpanyamuta Bandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha Yanayena Virudyadi Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Maitreya Uvacha Karpanyamuta Bandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha Seyam Bhagavato Maya Translation the words. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Sayam, such a statement, Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead, Maya, illusion, Yat, that which, Nayena, by logic, Virudyate, becomes contradictory, Ishvarasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vimuktasya, of the ever liberated, Karpanyam, insufficiently, Uta is also. What to speak of? Bandhanam, bondage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman or the personality of Godhead is overcome by illusion or Maya. And at the same time, they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Purport. Sometimes it appears that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory potency which covers the knowledge of the individual soul. But factually, there is no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. When Vyasadeva realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw the Lord along with his external potency, which covers the pure knowledge of the individual entities. Why the external energy acts in this way may be considered as follows, as analyzed by great commentators like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. Although the material illusory energy is distinct from the spiritual energy, it is one of the many energies of the Lord, and thus the material modes of nature, the mode of goodness, etc., are surely qualities of the Lord. The energy and energetic personality of Godhead are not different. And although such energy is one with the Lord, he is never overpowered by it. Although the living entities are also parts and parcels of the Lord, they are overcome by the material energy. The inconceivable Yogam Aishvaram of the Lord, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9.5, is misunderstood by the froggish philosophers in order to support the theory that Narayana, the Lord himself becomes a Daridra Narayana, a poor man. They propose that the material energy overcomes the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, offer a very nice example in explanation. They say that although the sun is all light, the clouds, the darkness and snowfall are all part and parcel of the sun. Without the sun, there is no possibility of the skies being overcast with clouds or darkness, nor can there be snowfall on the earth. Although life is sustained by the sun, life is also disturbed by darkness and snowfall produced by the sun. But it is also a fact that the sun itself is never overcome by darkness, clouds or snowfall. The sun is far, far away from such disturbances. Only those who have a poor fund of knowledge say that the sun is covered by a cloud or by darkness. Similarly, the Supreme Brahman or the Parabrahman, the personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by the influence of the material energy. Although it is one of his energies, Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Sruyate, there is no reason to assert that the Supreme Brahman is overpowered by the illusory energy. The clouds, darkness and snowfall can cover only a very insignificant portion of the sun's rays. Similarly, the modes of material nature may react upon the ray-like living entities. It is the misfortune of the living entity clearly, certainly not without reason, that the influence of the material energy acts on his pure consciousness and eternal bliss. This covering up of pure consciousness and eternal bliss is due to avidya karma samgya, the energy which acts on the infinitesimal living entities, who misuse their minute independence. According to Vishnu Purana, Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, the living entities are generated from the Tatastha energy of the Lord, and thus they are always the energy of the Lord and are not the energetic. The living entities are like the sun's rays. Although, as explained above, there is no qualitative difference between the sun and its rays. The sun's rays are sometimes overpowered by another energy of the sun, namely by clouds or by snowfall. Similarly, although the living entities are qualitatively one with the superior energy of the Lord, they have the tendency to be overpowered by the inferior material energy. In the very hymns, it is said that the living entities are like the sparks of a fire. The sparks of a fire also are fire, but the burning potency of the sparks is different from that of the original fire. When the sparks fly out of touch with the original fire, they come under the influence of a non-fiery atmosphere. Thus they maintain the potency to be again one with the fire as sparks, but not as the original fire. The sparks can everlastingly remain within the original fire as its parts and parcels, but the moment the sparks become separated from the original fire. But the moment the sparks become separated from the original fire, their misfortune and miseries begin. The clear conclusion is that the Supreme Lord, who is the original fire, is never overpowered. But the infinitesimal sparks of the fire can become overpowered by the illusory effect of Maya. It is a most ludicrous argument to say that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by his own material energy. The Lord is the master of the material energy, but the living entities are in the conditioned state, controlled by material energy. That is the version of Bhagavad Gita. The froggish philosophers who put forward the argument that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by the material mode of goodness are themselves illusioned by the same material energy, although they think of themselves as liberated souls. They support their arguments by a false and laborious jugglery of words, which is a gift of the same illusory energy of the Lord. But the poor froggish philosophers, due to a false sense of knowledge, cannot understand the situation. In the 6th canto, 9th chapter, 34th verse of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is stated, "Thus the demigods prayed to the Supreme Lord that although his activities are very difficult to understand, they can still be understood to some extent by those who sincerely engage in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord." The demigods admitted that although the Lord is apart from the material influence or creation, he nevertheless creates, maintains, and annihilates the complete cosmic manifestation by the agency of the demigods. So here we have a few very interesting moments where Prabhupada is explaining the main fault of the froggish philosophers. Who are the froggish philosophers? Do you know, Jimmy? Yes, exactly. Why are they froggish? Why frog? Why not horseish, but froggish? Hopping from lily pad to lily pad. That's very interesting. Yes. Very good point. Yes. They're stuck in the swamp of nescience. Yes. Prabhupada gives many times this example how the frog who was living in the well, who was just a few feet large, but then the neighbor frog, he went to see the Atlantic Ocean. And he came back and he told him, "Oh, I saw the Atlantic Ocean is like huge." And Mr. Frog, he said, "How is it huge? It's like 6 feet, double my well." He's like, "No, it's like immense. Like 9 feet, 20 feet. No, you don't understand. It's like colossal, And in this way, the froggish mentality is that one who is accustomed to his own kind of speculation, his own limited way of thinking, he cannot understand the immensity of the creation of the Lord, how great the Lord is." Prabhupada said, you know God is great, but how great is He? So in the same way, these so-called spiritualists are propagating this philosophy which is actually atheistic. And this is a big problem because this is one of the main influences, one of the main Western influences which we have nowadays. And of course, it's not that you find all these staunch Mayavadis like in the time of Shankaracharya. They are actually powerful yogis, and they're very powerful people. They can convince you quite quickly that Brahman is supreme, especially neophytes like us, which have their faith really flickering. That's why it's so dangerous to associate with this kind of people. They can easily brainwash you. But what happened is that many of these so-called gurus and yogis, they came to the West and they propagated this philosophy of impersonalism, that it's all one, we're all Brahman, and everybody is God, whatever. But it's actually, if we look at the supreme excellence of the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra, the natural commentary, Bhagavatam, it is a very childish, very mediocre philosophy of theirs. Basically, their main point is that there is the spiritual substance, Brahman, which is pervading everything, and the spiritual substance is subdivided in two categories in Nirguna Brahman, which is the absolute truth, the effulgence beyond, and we are also part of that, and that is true. We are part of Brahman. But then there is Saguna Brahman, the material form, which is inferior because it's temporary and is illusory, all these things. But then what happens is that when Saguna Brahman gets liberated, he becomes one, he merges into the Nirguna Brahman, and then it's all one. We are all connected and we are all one God. And in this way, the Ridra Narayana, or the poor Narayana, even the beggar of the street, even he is God. Even he is Krishna and Radha. Isn't it stupid? So the argument is very simple. How can the transcendence, which is quite clearly explained, even they are explaining about the supremacy of the transcendence of the Supreme Absolute Truth, how can the transcendence be overcome by his own creation, by his own minute energies? Just like we saw the very simple, very easily to understand example with the sun, which is producing darkness and clouds, rain and snow. They're all dependent on the sun. They cannot exist separately from the sun. How can rain and clouds shadow the sun? Of course, if we're living in a ignorant and dark place like New York City, of course, we don't see the sun for so many months. We're lacking in vitamin D, we're getting sick, so forth. But the point is that vitamin D, I said C. The point is that this is just a small portion, but the sun is never overcome by the clouds or by darkness. Rather, it's the other way around. Wherever there is sun, there is no darkness. The darkness cannot overpower the might of the sun. It cannot happen, or some rainy clouds. The clouds are being created by the evaporation of water. They come up, then they pour rain, and then they disappear. And it's all arranged by the potency of the sun. In the same way, by the will of the Lord, all these incredible things in the world are happening under His direction. They are popping out of nothing, then they're disappearing. Creation is being created from His body, all these universes, then it undergoes 4 stages, then it's being annihilated, again created, and all these things that are going on, our bodies, nature, all these variables are being directed by the supreme will of the Lord, which is causeless. He is sarva karana karanam. He doesn't have any cause. Everything else is beginning of this primal cause. Even the illusory potency, which is subordinate. We even find this this realization of Vyasadeva. This is very, very important for us. In the first canto of Bhagavatam, fifth chapter or seventh chapter, 4th verse, it is explained how Vyasadeva he absorbed himself, he became absorbed in trance, and he saw the Supreme Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, along with his spirit, along with his illusory potency, which was subordinate to him. So this was realized by the compiler of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and by all the Vedas, Vedavyas, and so we are accepting his supreme authority because he is empowered by Krishna, or sometimes even an incarnation of Krishna directly. So we are accepting his authority. So getting back to the Mayavadis, how can Nirguna Brahman be superior? How can the Supreme Absolute become influenced by the material energy, which is of inferior quality? It's inert. This means that basically when Krishna comes in this world, in his transcendental bodies, they are product of sattva gun, and Krishna becomes illusion by his maya. But then when he gets liberated, he becomes one with Nirguna Brahman. And when we get liberated, we also become one. And we are all the same thing. It doesn't make any sense, right? So this is what many people are believing in. But everything is subordinate, just like all the living entities, they are subordinate to their supreme source. So we know well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the Achintya Bela Bela Tattva principle, that the sun rays or the sparks of the fire, they in quality, they are the same thing. We have the same quality. Krishna is producing oceans with his breath. We're also producing a little bit of vapor. We also have the similar potency, but it's very minute, very small. We just produce some vapor. Yes. Krishna can create a mosquito, such an intelligent design, or a beautiful eagle, or a beautiful lion, whatever. Beautiful birds. We see the beauty of Krishna in the birds, his artistical expression. What can we do? We can do Boeing 300 something, which is like, after a few years you have to repair it. After a few more years you have to throw it because it's trash already. All these kind of imperfect technologies, which are complicating our lives so much, actually. But this is another thing. So, how did I come to this point? What was I saying before? No, just before this. Yeah. So the sun cannot become overpowered by darkness, or the fire cannot be, if it's a blazing fire, he cannot just be overcome by a little bit of water. But all the sparks which are getting out, they can be overcome. In this way, we are also being overcome by the inferior energy. So the living entity, he can choose to be with the fire or separate himself, and he will always have the potency to reconnect and to be again one with the fire, but he will always be different. So simultaneous oneness and difference. Tatastha Shakti, this is the marginal energy of the Lord. So the living entity is always prone to fall down in this way. So we should educate ourselves nicely in the matter of understanding this silly philosophy of theirs, and in this way become firmly established in our own philosophy and preach it to the people. Because this is actually, I remember when I was studying in Mayapur, we have one of our teachers, he was giving us a nice not example, but he was giving a nice statement that these Mayavadis, they are the clowns of the Vedic. Of all the philosophies, we have different, we have Vaisheshika philosophy, how are the others? Achintya, Nyaya, Sankhya. Mayavada philosophy, all these Mayavada, they are the clowns actually of the Vedic philosophies. Because I'll give you one example. It's very, 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 one story. It's very, very exemplary of what it means. So there was one boy, just like Jimmy, young boy. he got into spirituality, and he became really fired up. He wanted to develop his Bhakti Shakti or Mayavad Shakti in that particular case. So he went to Guruji, to his spiritual master. He inquired submissively, "Can you please teach me the philosophy? I want to understand. I want to become enlightened." And then his Guruji, he told him, "Okay, give me donation." He was like, "But how is it that you want donation immediately? The culture is that you get the knowledge and then you give donation." But then he explained, the Guru explained, "No, look how it works. If I explain you the philosophy, and then you understand in the end that the world is Maya, or everything around you is Maya. I am Maya. You are Maya, and money is Maya, and you won't give me donation. So you give me donation now." This is basically what they are saying, You are God, but then next day you have toothache. So God has toothache. God is being overpowered by his energies. This cannot happen. A sane person who understands what is God, he will never be deceived by this. So, let's see what I wrote here. So that's why it's so important that we not just read the scriptures, but to study them in order to understand nicely this principle and understand the mood of Srila Prabhupada, because he came in the West with the mission to deliver Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, to deliver all the people from these false misconceptions. And like I said, there are no staunch Mayavadis nowadays, but the modern kind of thought, modern way of thinking is influenced by these Mayavad conceptions, these big demons which were in the past, like Darwin and Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, all these strong materialists, and all the Mayavadis who came in the West. I won't mention names, but they were propagating the same things, which we were saying here, that everything is one. You just go out and enjoy. You have sex with everybody. You can have sex with your parents, no problem. You just enjoy anyway. You get all the knowledge, and then you understand you know nothing, and you get liberated, and you become God, or like this. How can you become God? God doesn't become God. God is God. That's why we have first verse Bhagavatam. Bam! Immediately, what is God? Parameshvara, the Ishvara of all the Ishvaras. So many Ishvaras in the material world, but they're all controlled by the Parameshvara. Deva, the God of all gods. That's why Prabhupada was specifically many times, most of the times, using this word, Godhead. They ask him, Prabhupada, what is Godhead? The head of all gods. So this is Krishna. Sarva Karana Karanam. There is no cause beyond Krishna. But how is it that God has no cause? If you ask normal people in the street, you explain to them, God created us, and many times their silly argument is, but who created God? God is not created, that's why he's God. So we have to understand this for ourselves, for our personal faith, which is the main fuel of our spiritual life. Without faith, we'll be vanished into the Nirvishesha Shunyavadi circle. And then explain it to others, because this is our mission. This is the gift that we have received, and this is the gift that we have to do to give away to all the other living entities. And in this way we will understand our real position by developing gratitude and compassion. And by following this simple process, it is very difficult. It is simple, but it's very difficult because we are conditioned. But nevertheless, it works. Waking up early in the morning, having shower, coming together, dancing, chanting, taking prasadam, discussing about spiritual topics, listening, offering obeisances to the deities, taking shelter of senior devotees, having the proper etiquette and conduct, very important. All these things, they are strengthening our faith, and they're giving us the possibility to understand deeply, to maintain the purity of our consciousness, and then preach this to the people outside, the people who are actually suffering. They're all suffering, they're in the richest city of the world, but they're suffering more than animals. Animals don't suffer so much. Animals don't work 12 hours a day to get salary, to get few morsels, just like the Muda, Animals don't suffer like this. They're suffering, they're degrading themselves, they're becoming less than animals. That's why next lives they will go to hell. So Prabhupada, he came to save us, which we were also the same. Cats and dogs. So we understand our position, we are cats and dogs, then we assess ourselves, we follow the sadhana, we get the purity. Purity is the force, and then we can deliver the others by giving them the books, by explaining to them, by inviting them to the temple. And of course, many devotees, they cannot be directly engaged in this, but they can help indirectly, all the congregational devotees. We're very fortunate to have many of them who are working and giving some donations which are supporting the preaching. We're buying books, we're buying boga for the deities, for the Sankirtan devotees, so that they're healthy and strong, and to go out and do some little bit of kirtan in the metro, in the subway, even just little bit of kirtan that they're doing. So many people are being attracted. They're coming then to the Tuesday program, they're taking prasadam, and they're understanding, they're getting the knowledge. So if we are healthy, if we are strong in our sadhana, and we have faith, we can easily implant this knowledge into them. We can easily, with a conviction, tell them, God is this. So don't be bewildered by anything else. Don't be bewildered by false gurus, by mayavaris, by shunyavaris, because it's all bogus. Because everything else is less than the truth. Even if you have 99% of the truth, it's still 1% less. Even if you have 99.9% of the truth, still you have a tinge of lie there. So that's why we have the cheaters and the cheated in this world. That's why. So we don't hate them, we understand everything has its purpose. Krishna created it because the cheaters want to be cheated, so they go there to these bogus gurus, and then they take shiksha. But nevertheless, we are trying to give this knowledge to everybody, and by first understanding it, like I said, and then we can preach it to the others. And this is the best thing, because Krishna declares it in the Bhagavad Gita. This is the best activities when we share the knowledge with the others. And in this way we become even stronger in our own practice, because we understand it better. As they say, teaching is also studying. The teacher is not just teacher, he's studying. When you're speaking, when you're reminding yourself of the shlokas, of the glories of the Lord, it is so beautiful. And we know it when we go out, when we speak with people, when Krishna is satisfied, you also get satisfied, because you're pouring water on the root. You're not pouring water on the leaves. So this is the best activity. This is the activity which pleases the most Prabhupada. To preach the Krishna consciousness movement, to expand it in all the manners, to distribute his books mainly, because he is the best preacher actually. We're not so good preachers. But if we give them the books, certainly their material life is finished. It may take them some time, but at one point, yes. We have so many cases with all these distributed books, just someone randomly from the family reads the book and then joins the temple, like this. Such a glorious movement. So, thank you very much for listening to me. tolerating my nonsense, whatever I did wrong. And if there are some questions, comments or chastisements, donations.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for giving class today. One thing that came to my mind as you were speaking was another thing you had said to me before. You had said something like, how can you explain the taste of an orange to someone who's never had an orange? You know, and I was kind of thinking like how the cloud, right? So the cloud, we may think that it covers the sun. You know, if you're in a rainforest, or, you know, maybe a Washington State, I think, is very rainy or something like that, you know, it's hard sometimes to think, where is that sun? You know, where is that sun? And I think that what's nice about your preaching and Prabhupada's preaching and the devotees is that they are the sunlight. You know what I mean? Like, no matter how cloudy it gets, no matter how much sun you think, how dark it may be, the devotees in Prabhupada's books are just like that ultimate sunlight as far as like preaching Krishna and his glories, you know. I'm pretty sure that in the Bhagavad Gita, correct me if I'm wrong, that he says, no one is more dear to me than my devotees.
Correct.
So, you know, the Supreme Controller is only really controlled by one thing, and that's his devotees. And I think that's just a beautiful sentiment, where he is so great that the greatness pours from you, pours from all the devotees here. And it's just like, there's not one sun. There's all There's not one sun. There's all these suns, you know what I mean? And it's the devotees and the books, and I'm just thankful that devotees like you continue to give class and distribute books and make prasad and matanga milk, and I'm very thankful. So, Hari Bol.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was a super duper class, Matanga Pr. You're putting me into ecstasy right now. You just, you know, I was kind of shaking around. I was like swaying, right? Because I liked hearing your sound vibration so much. But then you kind of like looked at me, and I was just like, I just caught your vibe, and I was like, yeah, more. Please just give me more. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love your class so much. Yeah. So I want to think that, yeah, I love the thing about like teaching is also speaking. Actually, Lokaram Prabhu, Gopal Champu Prabhu's godbrother, he mentioned to me once about how when he gives Bhagavatam class, he always likes it so much because it always serves as like a reminder for him too about what he's really doing, because his ears are the closest to his mouth. So then he's always the first, he's the closest one to his own teachings, right? And so that it's like the greatest service to yourself. I also know Vaisheshika Prabhu, I think one of his tenets of book distribution, transcendental book distribution, is to distribute to yourself first. Save all the souls, starting with this one, right?
Good.
Yeah, and then I just, it's the idea where like knowledge is just such, especially transcendental knowledge, is just such a beautiful, just far out like kind of wealth where the more you give is the more you get, right? By being more generous, you become richer and richer and richer and richer and richer. I think that even in that case too, that's the reason why we should pursue spiritual knowledge, right? It's eternal and it's everlasting, and the more we give it out, the more we get, and the happier we get. So then someone says that, right? They hear that and they're like, oh man, that's super far out. And then now we're experiencing that far out taste too, right? Like how are we going to tell someone what like preaching tastes like, what it tastes, what Hari Kirtan tastes like, right? We gotta let them experience. Give them the ammunition. Like load up their guns to start going out and shooting down these false, shooting down these like Mayavadi philosophies stuck in their head, right? Man, but yeah, also like Prabhupada being the best preacher, the best transcendental, like the best preacher. I love that point too, because like I know I've heard so many devotees say like we're just mailmen, right? We're just mailmen, and we're just going out and delivering books. And yeah, Prabhupada, we can never be a better preacher than Prabhupada. But then we just give out those books, and they're getting his association. And I just liked it so much. I loved your lecture so much, Prabhu. It is so very nice. And that I hope I can hear more of this, or we can talk more about this when we're taking prasad. Hare Krishna.
Sure. Thank you for listening. Pr Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Sankirtan movement ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.